end, right? Any questions, please feel free to type it in there, and then we'll try our best to answer them, and then we'll go from there. So thanks. So we started, right? Business innovation, happens because there are big ideas out there, right? There's some ideas. Somebody says we need to. You look at the past, right? Nobody thought Airbnb is going to be big. Nobody thought Uber is going to be huge, right? But somebody come up with an idea, says, hey, let's look at a way of doing ride sharing. Let's do a way of looking at hotel, offering sharing and stuff like that, right? And those ideas leads to business innovations, right? But now, especially now, business innovation is happening way much faster than before, right? In the past, you're looking at Uber, even earlier, Facebook, all the stuff. But now, because of the concept of open communities, open source, right? Innovation happens everywhere, whether it's a small item or large scale. It's happening all the time, and the pace of innovation is happening at a much faster pace as well, right? So look at it, right? Essentially, everybody, whether individual contributors or organization, can really innovate and contribute to an open source community. And this is where Red Hat brings our history, our track record in there, is that we have historical track record of innovating based on open source concepts in our product, in our portfolio, right? And same thing with OpenShift, right? Red Hat OpenShift really is building upon the heritage of our open ethos, right? Our history track record, and really brings to a platform for customers like yourself, really that enables your organization to innovate much, much faster. And we'll go through a little bit more on what it is. But think about this way: why is being able to move faster, innovate so much more important? Right? So something you want to ask yourself is, in your organization, right? Is there a need for you guys to deliver solutions much, much faster, right? Will delivering this fast solution be able to help you innovate and achieve your business goal, right? So think about that as we go through the presentation, and hopefully we'll kind of help you identify why OpenShift is going to help your business innovate much faster pace. Right. So you look at it, right? Innovation at speed, right? These are all the common things you have there, right? I got innovation at a speed, speedalize very fast, or I need to have the flexibility to adapt to changes that's happening all the time, right? And how do I, make sure that new customer experiences are satisfied, and also satisfy the lines of business, right? In their customer satisfaction, right? Because they are, if you look at it, lines of business is an internal customer to most organizations, and a lot of times they're the one that's providing the funding or driving the business needs, right? So to make sure then internally they're satisfied, along with the end customer satisfaction, right? Those are all important things as well. So you look at it, right? All these things are impacting decisions in the IT organizations, right? So this is where Red Hat believe that a hybrid cloud approach, specifically an open hybrid cloud approach, is going to address those needs, deliver these results to the organization, right? But if you look at it, right, hybrid cloud is more than just a strategy for new projects, right? To looking at, it's more just strategy to look at a new project for future requirements, right? It actually allows organization to meet your current challenges, but also be able to, position yourself for the future, right? So the key is that, we all know that to be able to change from, from point A to point B, it takes time to go through the process, right? And this is where Red Hat believes that in a hybrid cloud, an open hybrid cloud approach, allows you to address the needs on the path from A to B, right? To solve your current situations, address your current problems, but also position yourself for a future that you can, you can address future needs, right? As we all said before, there's always new changes. There's always new requirements, right? How do you have a platform, an open hybrid cloud platform, that allows you to address those needs as they pop up? So that way your internal customers, your end customers are satisfied, but also looking at before, the previous slide, right? How to make sure that you can adapt easily, right? And those are things that we believe an open hybrid cloud can provide for customers, right? So if you look at it, this is a kind of example, right? If you look at from most IT organizations, there are a lot of applications sitting right there. They may have traditional architecture applications, right? Well, how do I move along the process in an open hybrid cloud approach to solve my current needs, but also for futures, right? So this is a good example right here. Traditional apps, right? Java-based, .NET, all the stuff with it. Well, how do I make it become cloud native and microservices, right? Leveraging the open hybrid cloud to build to convert those apps, using the modern kind of hybrid cloud architecture. But also now I have a platform, I have an approach to support the business. I can look at future, right? Whether it's AI ML workloads, whether it's more real-time analytics or serverless, right? Now the platform, the open hybrid cloud platform, in this case, Red Hat OpenShift, can really help provide the platform for future business needs, right? These new workloads, the new infrastructure, new functions that they can survive and provide those, right? So it really is, if you look at it, hybrid cloud, open hybrid cloud, it's not just a strategy, but really it's a journey from traditional to support current needs, right? To adapt to the platform, but also for future workloads. So another question you ask yourself, right? Think about it is what other kind of applications do you have in your portfolio that you're struggling trying to in terms of providing the support needed, right? What application do you have that it can be converted or adapted to a modern architecture base, right? And what are some new business needs that as an organization wants you to look at, right? Is it more AI ML type workload? Is it real-time analytics, etc.? Those are things that you always want to ask yourself. What is being asked from the line of business, so you can provide the services to line of business, right? So that's talking about the application itself, right? The next part looking at is what's the development process, right? What's the IT process, the skill set, right? If you look at it, how do I, sorry. Do you need to look at is that does your developer have the right tool set to develop new applications, right? Do they have the skill set? Is there a documented pipeline processes? How does that process work in place, right? How do I kind of go into an iterative process, right? You hear the word CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous development, right? How do I have the process to help my modern application in iterative fashion to be able to constantly provide updates and changes based on the business needs, based on the requirements changes, and be able to quickly come up with the result for the application, right? So this another thing to look at is besides, right, having besides hybrid cloud having a concept, right? We're looking at is how do I deal with applications? How do I streamline or modernize my processes, right? With the tools, processes, and people, right? It's very important. How do I make sure they have the right tool set, the right training associated with it in order to make that journey, right, along with it. Finally, if you look at is infrastructure, right? Where does the application sit, right? Are you looking at is it going to be in the cloud, right? Is it going to be in multiple cloud? Well, do I need to host it internally on-prem? Is there a requirement for it to stay on-prem? Well, how do I kind of quote unquote move the application around as needed, right? Is it from an infrastructure perspective? Is it going to be on bare metal servers, right? Is it on virtual machines? All these things these are the questions that you're going to encounter as you make that journey, right? And kind of in the open hybrid cloud journey, right? Again, right? If you're like many of our customers, right? You're using probably multiple clouds, right? Whether it's in Amazon Web Services, AWS, or GCP, or Azure, or some hosting environment, right? And it could be your own data centers, right? So you're already struggling in managing these multi-cloud approaches, both on-prem and off-prem, right? So really is how do I have a platform that can easily stretch across between on-prem, off-prem, multiple cloud, right? Private, hybrid, also with it, right? And this is where we believe Red Hat OpenShift can be the platform for you. All right, so you look at it, right? Hybrid cloud believes that really delivers the agility to innovate quicker, right? Think about this way: how do I create and deploy code faster, right? Just looking at process before, in terms of the processes, right? How do I leveraging the continuous integration, continuous development, CI/CD pipeline to really make updates, deploy new codes, and serve the business associated with it, right? Well, how do I make sure that I have a platform is secure and connect applications with development, right? You got to make sure that the developers, your customers, can build a user platform to create the application that you do so, but also to ensure that the platform itself, where it's developed on, is secure, right? And it's being properly managed with IT operations associated with it. And last part, right? How to look at new global delivery models, right? Like I said, maybe today you're developing the application on-prem, but then you need to be able to move this workload, move this application to a public cloud environment, whether it's in the US, right? Or maybe that you need to move to some remote area in the world to serve the business needs, right? Really, that having this hybrid platform, hybrid cloud approach, really is going to help the drive the agility to innovate. Right. So again, right, shameless pitch, right? Right. We build Red Hat OpenShift really so that any organization can really thrive based on in the world of hybrid possibilities, right? Whether it's data center workload, whether it's in cloud workload, whether it's an edge, right? Red Hat OpenShift really is the platform that can stretch across from the edge to data center to the cloud, the multi-cloud approach, right? And that gives you that platform, the open hybrid cloud platform, where where your modern applications and future workloads can really leverage that solution. So this is just the classic marketing slide, right? Skip through right here. So if you look at it, right, platform needs to be consistent across applications models, right? Whether it's cloud or on-prem, whether it's across an ecosystem of software and hardware that allows you, the IT organization, to deliver fast and secure, so that your platform is secure, proven, ready for tomorrow's innovations, right? So let's do like here. You still got to be able to serve, right? The Red Hat OpenShift platform can still serve traditional apps, and we'll go through a little bit more why it can still do that, right? But also it can also support cloud native apps, right? As new apps created, as traditional app gets re-platformed into a modern world, it can support that. But also the newer what we call functions, right? You probably hear the word FaaS, function as a service, right? We're looking at is these are kind of the modern type of functions. They're not really a full-blown app per se, but it's function to serve certain needs, right? Whether it's AI, ML, whether it's real-time analytics, whether it's serverless, right? So really that it's a whole spectrum of needs that business asks of IT organizations, that you'll be able to support that with an OpenShift platform, whether it's traditional, cloud native, or even modern functions associated with it, right? And then build on top of that, really on the bottom is whether it's a physical environment, the infrastructure you're providing it, whether it's a virtual environment, whether it's a private cloud, your own dedicated on-prem environment, within a data center, or even a public cloud, or even edge, right? This is where Red Hat OpenShift can actually span across edge, data center, cloud, multi-cloud approach. And also, right, the same OpenShift that we talk about right here, the OpenShift experience, is available in two operation models, right? So if you're your organization, you want to leveraging the cloud vendors, cloud providers, and really we want them to manage for you those environments while sitting in the cloud, so you don't have to worry about managing the infrastructure because you have lack of resources, or you just don't have enough bodies to help support it, right? Red Hat has partnered with all these lists of public cloud providers out there to provide a managed OpenShift experience, right? Whether it's Red Hat OpenShift service on AWS, right, which is just announced, I think was 2 or 3 weeks ago, GA, right? Whether it's Azure, Microsoft Azure, Red Hat OpenShift, right? ARO is there as well. Whether it's Red Hat, OpenShift on IBM Cloud, and also if you're looking at it, if you want to have run on Google Cloud environment, there's Red Hat OpenShift dedicated, right? All these offerings are a managed operation Red Hat OpenShift experience for customers who want to embrace and leverage in public cloud for their needs. Also, the same Red Hat OpenShift experience is also available in a self-managed Red Hat OpenShift. What that means is if you want to deploy OpenShift, Red Hat OpenShift in your own data center, you want to deploy that in AWS or Azure or IBM Cloud or GCP or some hosting environment that you're going to manage the infrastructure yourself, right? The same thing, same is available, right? So we're not saying, we're not saying that Red Hat OpenShift cannot be run on particular cloud or it can't run on particular, colo or hosting companies. No, the idea is that if you want to self-manage and self-maintain the environment, absolutely you can do that. If you want to leveraging a managed environment experience, we work with these 4 listed public cloud here in the US that you can leverage that and have the same OpenShift managed experience for you. Right. Besides that, right, Red Hat also has a broad ecosystem of hardware and software partners, right? There's some listing right here, whether it's some particularly looking at security related partners or networking or databases, right? These are a huge list of ecosystem partners that we work with, that we partner with, that allows you to take those particular partners' products, right, and be able to run it in Red Hat OpenShift to address a particular needs, right? So for example, if your environment is, you have, let's say, NetApp storage environment for your, Red Hat OpenShift can run on top of that. In fact, there's integration, right, between OpenShift and be able to, automatically parse storage on the back end to allow for growth in terms of resources, right, without having to do a 2 or 3 step approach to go through with it, right? If you look at, for example, if you're looking at be able to leverage GPUs in some of your workloads, right? NVIDIA has, operators that designed for Red Hat OpenShift that you can deploy into the OpenShift environment, and that can talk to, the GPU hardware for a particular work that needs to be done, right? And these lists are constantly growing here. Besides supporting partners like, DLT here, I also support kind of the ISV partner ecosystem within the Red Hat public sector, right? So I see all these list partners coming in all the time with, they have their particular needs, the particular solution to solve business needs, right? And to be honest, right, this is how the platform is going to be excelled, because Red Hat can't do it alone. We really need to work with all these partners to take what they can provide and build into the ecosystem, so partners like so customers like yourself can really take advantage of that. Go to the Red Hat OpenShift marketplace, be able to download the operator, right, for these ISVs, these partners, and be able to solve your business needs and leverage their solutions. Other than that, right, also, right, for customers who really have a large, want to incorporate Red Hat OpenShift into their large initiatives, they really want to work with, large system integrators listed down below, right? There's definitely a partnership between Red Hat and those system integrators to be able to provide, provide Red Hat OpenShift into their overall business solution that's working with the various agencies or various customers, right? So they can leverage, they can address the needs running on Red Hat OpenShift to solve whatever the RFP requirements is or whatever the business needs that our customers have. All right, so this is a kind of a snapshot of an IDC documentation, and you can see the source down below, really kind of showcasing how, from IDC research, that Red Hat OpenShift customers have seen an average, they say 661% return ROI investment in over a 5-month period. Really, if you look at it, it's a combination of things, right? Be with having a easy managed platform across the hybrid cloud approach, right? And leveraging some of the processes, the CI/CD process, app development, right? All the stuff, not only from an infrastructure perspective, but also an operation perspective, that really provide value what it brings in. And once you guys get the slide, you can definitely click on the link and look at those IC docs if you want to. All right, so we look at it. The next step is OpenShift the Red Hat OpenShift is a platform built for cloud-native applications, right? Marketing pitch, kind of said before, right? Really is address the current needs, which is how do I take managing legacy applications in a modern world, right? Either by replatforming or assist in the transition of it, but also be able to leverage in the newer functions needs out there as well. So you look at it, right? Red Hat OpenShift is really, marketing says every innovator, right? But if you look at it, it solves the needs of various stakeholders within IT organization. It's ready for IT operators, right? So you look at it from an IT administrator, IT operator of a Red Hat OpenShift environment. It really automates the process, right? Scaling resources, right, dynamically based on the needs, based on the rule needs you set in there. So that way, as business scale, apps need, app scale, more resources are needed, it really can dynamically allocate more resources as needed. And when it needs to scale down because you hit the end of the month, requirement or business need, then they're able to shrink the resources down, right? So this gives IT administrators, IT operators a great way to scale, but not having to do extra, kind of do separate work to do the scaling resources, right? It's all dynamic within Red Hat OpenShift can be done that way. Second part is the second stakeholder really is the developers, right? It gives them, if you look at OpenShift, there is a separate developer's view and IT operator view, right? So from a developer view, it gives them the familiarity with tools, right? The common tools they deal with, right? Node.js, all stuff with it. They can still leverage that and they can still create application from there, right? It simplifies the process as they develop applications, write applications with a tool set. And because of the continuous integration, continuous delivery concept of deploying applications, right? Now, if there's a business need, the changes, right? They can easily go into that development pipeline process, make the necessary changes, getting the approvals that it's established in the process itself, and be able to roll the update down quicker, right? Gone are the days of it needs me months to provide updating the application, right, impacting business needs. Now, with a proper process, with a proper guideline processes that organization have, you can easily push out updates minutes, right? Providing you have all the things, you hit all the necessary checkpoints each organization has. So this really gives agility to the developers to build roll updates out, to be able to solve business needs, adapt to changes as needed, right? And if you look at overarching, right, it really gives line of business and business leaders really the platform that I can scale. Instead of managing multiple separate platforms, one in cloud vendor A, one in cloud vendor B, and one in on-prem, then I have to worry about if I move apps around, do I need to recode the app itself to adapt to those particular needs, right? You don't have to with Red Hat OpenShift because the Red Hat OpenShift platform can run on a public cloud environment, on-prem in your environment, right? It's the same platform. So that way your apps has the mobility, apps, you don't have to worry about replatforming or rewriting the app as you move from one location to another. All right, so that's kind of the why we believe that, innovation, right? Innovation and with Red Hat OpenShift will help business drive more innovation, and because of open hybrid cloud approach to Red Hat OpenShift. So I'll spend the next two series guys kind of go over the quick functional overview on kind of highlight how what Red Hat OpenShift includes in there, right? So a lot of times people will say, oh, Red Hat OpenShift is just like Kubernetes. Well, it's more than just Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes by itself is a scheduling service. Its main function is to schedule, making sure things are run on a schedule basis, right? If you look at Red Hat OpenShift, it's more than that. It's really a platform, right? Whether it's, when I mentioned that, right, it's a platform. You have all these functional needs that needs to address for the IT organizations, right? Like a self-service, right? Give the developer the way to self-service, create an application. They have a platform they can log in there. They can create applications, right? Self-service as needed without having to constantly go through the request process, right? Right. It's, there's automation associated with it, right? How to automate the process, automate the updates, right? If needed, based on the organization needs, right? If you look at, we look at standard base, right? You, as an organization, you establish a standard, for example, how the new app needs to be created, updated, right? You create a standard, you create the rule set, right? Then your customer, the developers, will be able to self-service still within your standard base, switch with it. And the key with that is once you create the standard, in the Red Hat OpenShift platform in your on-prem environment, you can apply the same standard to another OpenShift in the public cloud or the edge, right? So that ensures that consistency across the IT organization, whether it's edge, data center, or cloud, right? Build on open source, right? Really, that we believe that open source really drives innovation, right? And this is where, you look at it, there's tons of, guess what, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people contributing to that OpenShift environment, right? That OpenShift, in terms of the upstream open source, right? And then Red Hat as well, we contribute to that. So that way, these contributions, these ideas drive innovation, drive updates that we'll go through a little bit more of what our customer wants to see, and we'll bring those updates from the community to an end product for you guys to see. Right? You look at it, quick slide is right, evaluate OpenShift, right? So again, really is kind of there's a lot of things to see right here. If you look at it, Red Hat OpenShift as a platform goes from bottom up, right? Starting with the quote unquote operating system, right? Really is that Red Hat built upon the histories of Red Hat Enterprise Linux. On top of that, this is where Kubernetes, right, comes in, is how do I do the scheduling associated with it? But on top of that, this is where it's more than just Kubernetes, right? More than just, enterprise Kubernetes. It's really that there's all the other functions that IT organization needs, right? Whether it's I want to be able to see proper monitoring, logging, right? I want to be able to have network, routing built into it, telemetry, right? That's one example. Or I want to look at, serverless, these newer functions as service, right? Serverless workload, right? How to deal with that. And the dev tools, right? Looking at it this way. So this is where the whole package comes in here is, Red Hat OpenShift is more than just Kubernetes. It gives you all these kind of functions and services that as a platform should have, right? All tightly integrated and all tightly, in the sense that it's coupled. So that way, when we release an update, we make sure all these components are interoperable and tested before we release an update out. Now, could you do it yourself and build your own with what's out there? Absolutely. Do it yourself. Kubernetes works too. The biggest challenge is that if you kind of cobble the pieces yourself, right, then you will want to supporting it. And when there's updates, let's say they're updated to fix a server mesh component, right, community-based server mesh, then okay, I apply the update. But does that ensure that it's not going to break my other components in my build it do it myself Kubernetes platform, right? You're the one who has supporting it. And this is where if you work with Red Hat, if you leverage Red Hat OpenShift, you know that when there's update released, when there's an update coming out for Red Hat OpenShift, all these various components being tested, and that it's going to be properly supported when it's released out, right? It's really that. So from a customer perspective, it's less about supporting that, do it myself composition, right? Versus, how do I work on more important tasks, right? Really working on the newer functions and newer applications that address business needs, right? Maximizing the efficiency, my hours, essentially. If you look at it, right? So if you look at the basically look at the bottom, right, going from CAS to PaaS to FaaS, right, and this is what I talked before is traditional applications, like modern days within a platform like Red Hat OpenShift to be able to platform as a service, and going to function as a service when you're looking at serverless, AI, ML, real-time analytics associated with it. And this is just a slide looking at all the various components that's kind of built into Red Hat OpenShift and kind of, whether it's compute-based, right, resources or network component or even storage, right, just kind of a quick snapshot of what it brings in. All right, so now we'll kind of go over a little bit what's new with OpenShift 4.7. So 4.6 was released out we I think it was 6 months ago. We talked about is the government release, really that address a lot of our public sector customers' needs, right? They would have disconnect and install and associated with it, right? So that was all released in 4.6, really that solved some of our requirements our customers, our public sector customers need. 4.7 really talks about focusing on stability and some new features, right? And here are some, I'll highlight a few right here. Number one is, right, we introduced OpenShift virtualization 2.6 associated with it, right? So this is where, if you have traditional virtual machines, VMs environment, that you want to, have a single pane to manage it, to manage experiences, you can leverage that, right? So with OpenShift virtualization 2.6, you can create using the same management experience, same single control plane to manage both your VMs as well as your containers, right? Second part is really, you hear a lot of definitely the trend of GitOps, right? How do I, to accelerate innovation with the GitOps process, right? OpenShift really can support GitOps methodologies associated with it, and we can do a separate discussion some other time. But really, that really is we see the trend, we see the need, and there's definitely tool sets, processes to support GitOps from OpenShift platform itself. Third part is, right, more tools, right? So for example, people want to run Windows containers, right? You can definitely run Windows containers on vSphere environment, and again, check the documentation to make sure you fit those needs. And then you're looking at, there's migration tool sets, right? If you want to move for virtualization, migration tool set, that's part of tech preview. Really just providing more tools to modernize applications and give customers a flexible environment, whether it's traditional Linux environment or Windows environment, etc. With it, this is all introduced in 4.7, right? Also, right, some of the features associated with it is better install upgrade processes, right? Better diagnostics, just trying to give users a much better overall experience, right? In terms of install and upgrade processes, right? Again, right, observability, more stability built into it, right? So we want to make sure, as we look at it, 4.7 really stabilize and fix some of the issues that people have seen, while introduce some functionality associated with it. Right, we talked about, so in 4.6, we talked about OpenShift Compliance Operator, acronym RHCOS, right? So really what that does is, this operator allows the ability to scan the OpenShift cluster nodes and Kubernetes components to making sure that, you have a good, clean bill of health in terms of standardization and security, to make sure that you did not deviate from the industry standard baseline, right? So that's part of the operator that you can download it, you can run against your OpenShift cluster environment to leverage it, right? It was available in 4.6, but basically, right, we just we work with the benchmarking community to be able to provide much tighter compliance and result oriented, right? This is just want to make sure as we evolve the operator to address more needs, right? Just want to make sure that you can do scan, you can remediate, you can scan, right? And again, this is addressing the infrastructure component of OpenShift, Red Hat OpenShift, right? The cluster nodes, the Kubernetes component. This does not, in this current release, right now, it does not address scanning your actual application process, right? So if you want to run something to scan your app to making sure they're not pulling from a bad GitHub registry or not pulling from a bad registry, having malware in there, Red Hat OpenShift compliance operator does not do that, right? This is more providing the infrastructure compliance, right? Also, right, in terms of open virtual network, IPsec encryption, this is introduced in 4.7, so that way, from a pod-to-pod traffic perspective, the data is encrypted, confidential, authenticated, and they can't tamper, right? So this just want to make sure that from a resource to resource, from pod-to-pod communication-wise, is properly secured, encrypted, so that way, reduce the potential risk of somebody, getting access to those data. That's part of 4.7. Right? In this case is really, we've further simplified a full stack automated install IPI deployment, right? So if you want to do the automated deployment of Red Hat OpenShift, in a self-managed environment, you want to deploy it in a bare metal, you want to deploy it in a particular environment, right? I think even VMware is IPI built to it. Much more streamlined, interactive, simplify the process to deploy that, right? So it's almost like set it and forget it, and you can deploy it your OpenShift in the IPI deployment process in your environment, right? Again, check the check the documentation to make sure your environment fits those needs. If it's one of those supported environment, it'll be much quicker to deploy. I think I deployed an OpenShift via IPI, and it was done in probably 2 hours, right? Very quick environment. So right, we're constantly, introducing more supported IPI deployment. Want to make it easier for people to deploy OpenShift to use in their business needs. Another thing about OpenShift 4.7 introduced is really how do I introduce the concept of horizontally scaled pods, right? So based on your memory utilization and CPU utilization from a cluster, from resources, it can horizontally scale more pods to support the business needs, right? We've also done vertically scaling before, right? Adding resources and stuff with it, right? Do that. But really this 4.7 introduced, a memory-based auto scale, right? So again, this idea is people use the platform more for the application. The business need requires, drive more workload, and there's a surge of requirement of resources. OpenShift as a platform can be able to support scaling more pods, more resources, so that we support the business, right? And this is all done in an automated fashion to make it easier for the operators and customers, right? Key is that it's based on administrator defined metrics, right? So as an administrator, as an IT operator, you got to define the metrics. Then once it hit those metric needs, it goes scale resources, right? So it's really requires IT operators and developers to work together, business owners to work together to address what needs to be done. So then you can scale as needed based on the needs. The other part is, right, how do I work with multi-cluster configuration, right? So if I have multiple OpenShift clustering out there, how do I, using Argo CD to be able to do multi-cluster config management, right? This kind of go back to what we talked about GitOps before, is really how do I, embrace the GitOps concept, which is, declare the configuration for environment, right? To be able to decode, component, all the various with it in a multi-cluster environment, right? So we support that with 4.7 OpenShift. All right, running along. Last 2 more slides, that's it. So for those who may not have been exposed to OpenShift, right, want to learn more about OpenShift, there's a couple ways, right? One is go to learn.openshift.com. So this is where in the website, right, with Katakoto, where there's interactive learning scenarios. So these are ways you can look at how do I, build application OpenShift, right? You can click on that. It'll kind of go through a pre-configured environment that can, through a browser, no tools downloaded, so provided you can get to it. But it's a good way to kind of see what are some of the common tasks, common needs within OpenShift, right? Building applications, right? How to look at serverless. So this is a good way for you to expose to what OpenShift can do. The second one, is our OpenShift streaming, right? So I think the URL is openshift.com/streaming, but the hyperlink is right there, so you guys can download and access it once you get the PDF version of it. But we have a YouTube, we have a YouTube site for live streaming, also a Twitch channel for live streaming, right? So these are I got the screenshot of it. They're especially on the Twitch stuff. There's scheduled calendar events where Red Hatters are on there doing live streaming to showcasing, whatever they want to showcase, right? These are not pre-recorded, so things do break, right? Unexpected things do happen. But really, it's a good way for people to see more about, interact with the Red Hatters and looking at what can be done, right? So these are 2 sites: learn.openshift.com and also OpenShift streaming, where you guys can get more exposed to what OpenShift can do potentially for your environment. And question answer. AJ, hand it back to you.
Thanks, Jim. Great content. I don't see any questions in the meeting chat right now, but we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. Feel free to unmute your line if you have any questions and ask our expert, Jim, related to OpenShift. Any questions out there? If you don't want to unmute, you're more than welcome to type it in the meeting chat as well.
I must have put everybody to sleep. There's no interaction. I feel bad.
Kelly Boyce question, where
it was
will
good. It was good.
Where are these slides being held? I'd like to provide them to my lab. Kelly, great. They are uploaded onto the DLT marketplace. If you do not have an account, please reach out to our Navy Red Hat team at DLT.com, or you can just email redhat@DLT.com, either way, and we'll make sure that you either get an account on the DLT marketplace or you get access to these slides. You're welcome. And Kelly, also this training will be recorded there as well. So you'll be able to share that on-demand training to your labs as well, along with the deck. That goes along for anybody. Any other questions?
Hi, this is Kevin Bowersox. I have a question. You mentioned a GitOps approach and storing declarative configuration and then using an operator to apply those resources in the cluster. Is there any sort of GitOps approach to the actual provisioning of OpenShift itself? More so looking at provisioning infrastructure via a GitOps strategy?
So to be honest, I don't know. I can do some research and get back to you on that part. But I think at this point, I believe our GitOps kind of approach is really working with the applications, right? Right. So whether it's, you can do it, or even use something like a GitLab or something like that to provide that declarative process with it, right? But I'll check on whether we're, is it in the pipeline to roadmap to kind of do from a infrastructure component of it. So I will check on that, and I'll let AJ know, and then we can provide an answer to you.
Thank you. Yeah, just curious. I think of things like Terraform and
right.
being able to provision out a cluster on demand, and understand it's kind of early days for that concept. But yeah, just interested if that's on your roadmap.
I mean, we kind of do. So we do that with our IPI deployment, IPI installer, right? So really, like I said, we can, with the IPI approach, install a provision, approach, that really can kind of automate process to deploy OpenShift cluster, whether it's a AWS cloud or on-prem, bare metal, full stack approach, that kind of stuff, right? So we kind of do that, but I think specifically regarding GitOps, I'll do some research and then I'll get back to you guys on that.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Kevin, for the question. Anybody else? All right. Well, it doesn't look like there are any other questions. So thank you, everyone, for joining today. We hope you found today's Technology Spotlight informative and meaningful. As I mentioned earlier in the Spotlight, it was recorded and it will be available on the DLT Marketplace, so you can share with colleagues and watch again on demand if needed. As a reminder, these Tech Spotlight series will be held on the fourth Wednesday of every month. Our next Spotlight is scheduled for May 26th on the topic of DevSecOps. So enjoy the rest of your day. And again, thank you for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.